Hey guys, back at you with another video, and today's video was a question from Patreon, Dolphin Girl. She asked, is the market for retro video games still relevant in today's market, even though we have a lot of new games being released? And I guess when you say newer games, you're probably talking about the new generation of games. Me personally, I appreciate like all games these days, but back when I was younger, I could not find myself playing anything before the third generation of video games, like the Atari or whatever the first generation video games, second generation. I came up probably I would say with a Nintendo, and I just really couldn't go past anything past that at the time. But over time, I've come to appreciate all the old school type games because even with today's games, I would say they can be kind of confusing with all the controllers, all the buttons you have to press and all that stuff, and the reaction time, quick time events, all that craziness. But back with the older games like that, you know, a simple controller, a simple game that has a controller that only uses one button, like with the Atari system or the Atari 2600, you know, that could be something simplistic for somebody that, you know, it's just into like just simple games for them that they enjoy. You know, it's very easy to get into for them. Me personally, like I said, I can't go back to that generation yet, but I do appreciate what they've brought to the table. But with so many new games coming out these days, you know, will people forget though? Like, are people like kind of like forgetting about retro games? I don't think so. I think they're appreciating them even more with the way games are being released today. You know, a lot of people love the days when you could just pop a game in and it starts up right away. With the new modern games these days, you know, you have to do with updates and being online and all that stuff, and it just takes a lot of time to sometimes get into something you just want to get in real fast. You know, the retro market doesn't have that, or pretty much. Also, with the old school retro games, I would say they're pretty much still making new retro games, retro type games for the older systems. I mean, you don't see that many of them coming out, but there are developers still making games out there like. Here's an example: FX Yuki for the Sega Dreamcast and PC Engine. You know, it's a new game for older systems. Dreamcast is just pretty much celebrating its 20th anniversary in America. So for someone to find out like for a game like a new game on that system, that's pretty amazing for someone who was a big fan of the Dreamcast system. You know, retro games is for me. You know, like I said, my favorite generation of the retro games these days would be the fifth and sixth generations. Those will be my all-time favorite games are just systems because you know I had a lot of time to play those games, and I have a lot of good memories with those games on those systems. During that generation too, developers really were free to do what they wanted. Where today's games, you know, if they break even on a game, you know, the studio might shut down. So it's pretty crazy what's going on with newer games, but I do appreciate newer games. I feel like there's room for both. Obviously, they should be because I feel if there wasn't really any retro games around like there are today, I mean, I think people would kind of like fall off from today's games just because the variety. You wouldn't be able to find, you know, like the different balance in games. I would say, you know, obviously I like playing newer games, but sometimes I get tired of them. I want to go back and play some retro, something simple and easy to get into. You know, so it's very healthy to have both of them in there. But with today's games, I would say it's kind of like it's really weird. I would say because with today's games, it's what's the word I'm trying to look for here? There's a lot of games flooding the market pretty much, and it's hard for a talented developer to put out something that people might see with the flood of games that are pretty much coming out these days. So you really have to make your game stand out. You know, if you don't, it could get lost in pretty much, and if it gets lost, I mean, you're pretty much done unless you can find somebody who can help you market it properly. And then there's the market stuff at the proper time because certain games have a slate, and a lot of them like to do the release date towards the end of the year, pretty much during Christmas and everything. A lot of games have that on lock, but those are games that have established themselves, like a new IP or anything like that. To come out during the end of the year, you know, they have to make sure that game looks good, or they can sell it on the freaking trailer or whatnot. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff, but it is a lot to think about. But I feel like the appreciation for games, especially with the newer generation of gamers out there, I think a lot of them are appreciating the retro games. I don't see too many of them, but I think there's just enough of them that really appreciate the generation, at least the generation of games I came from. You got your people who love Nintendo, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, of course, Sega Saturn, all that stuff. I see younger generation looking into that stuff, and they like it. They could probably see the difference of how games were made back then than they are today, especially with the freedom of development. A lot of companies these days, they want their games they just want people to make a game, put out a game that's just going to sell. They don't care if it's a new IP or anything like that. So hey, once it's sell, we want to make money. That's it. That's all they care about. And now that you see a lot of companies just smashing out these sequels and everything, and it burns these developers out and everything. So that's what I see happening in a lot of the market today. But yeah. So also, she had another question here. How is the release of classic games on new consoles hurting the retro market? I don't think it's hurting the retro market. I would say this, like say a game is re-released or whatnot. Some games are really expensive or didn't sell well and they're hard to find. So if they get a re-release, that works for everybody pretty much, especially with the new modern systems. Easier way to play these games. Like say for something like Rule of Rose, which is a sought-after game. If that got a re-release, that would make a lot of people happy. But I'll just say this: if they're going to re-release Rule of Rose, make sure they fix the hit detection and control issues, because that was the stuff that messed that game up really bad. I mean, it could have been a way better game than it was, but those controls, man, and hit detections is really, really bad. But I don't think it does hurt the market. I think it actually helps it. The people who have the classic editions of games, I mean, they're good to go. I mean, obviously, like say for instance, like Resident Evil 2. Now I know Resident Evil 2 is more of a remake than a remaster, but with the how great the second game, the original Resident Evil 2 was, it was a win-win situation for Resident Evil fans, because if they screwed up on the Resident Evil remake, hey, okay, they messed up on it. We still got our original. We're good to go. So I think it doesn't hurt it. I think it helps. I mean, it's great that a lot of them go back and look at older games that they can re-release to kind of expand it to a newer audience. I think it's great, and that's happening. I see it with a lot of Switch games. I've seen like some PS2 games released on the Switch as a physical. I can't remember the game. It's called it's some Phoenix game, or not Phoenix, but like I would say Pharaoh game. I can't remember what it's called right now, but it was being re-released on the Switch. I was like, whoa, okay, so now this game will probably get way more recognition than it did from back in the day. Because the PS2 era was flooded with a lot of cool games, but a lot of them got buried pretty much because it was just a flood of them. So it's actually smart for them to kind of re-release some of this stuff. HD, I would kind of remaster, touch it up a bit, and put it on a modern system. Like the Switch is perfect, because everybody's on the Switch hype train pretty much, and that's a good system to put it on. Now, well, not just a Switch, I would say. I mean, I would want some of those releases probably on more powerful hardware. Because the whole thing, I mean, just going into the port of what happened with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night with the Switch version, I was like, man, come on, man. I mean, that's why I want these games to be on a superior system, so you want to deal with those hiccups, because that port was pretty bad. But hey, by the way, does anybody know if there's a port coming out still, like a patch? I mean, not a port, like a patch for that, because I still haven't played my copy yet, man. I was waiting for a patch to happen, but that doesn't happen, man. I just might have to just trade it off or something. But anyways, I think, like I said, I just feel they're actually good. Remasters are actually really nice. It kind of refreshes the series. It helps gain interest back into maybe a genre that was or like a game that was forgot about or whatnot. So yeah, I think it's a really good thing. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you. Radical Reggie. Oh, yeah. Dolphin Girl, thank you for the question. Appreciate you. And Radical Reggie. And I will see you guys later.